Miami, moving on. They defeat the 76ers 4-2. An incredible game, 99-90, the final here in Game 6. Jimmy Butler, not going to call it a revenge series, but did have 32 points, a game high as he faces his former team. 76ers, a lot to sort out as they move on, but for Miami, they are advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals. Let's bring in our NBA insider, Bill Reiter, to break down what we just watched. Miami just continuing to bring the heat. Bill, beating the 76ers, advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals. How is Miami playing so well? Just what are they doing just so right?
Yeah, Sherry, this Heat team reminds me of the Bucks last year, deserving of a lot of respect and credit they really haven't gotten nationally. There's a few things going on here. One, and you hit on this, this is a remarkable defensive team, and every single player that gets minutes under Erik Spoelstra knows their role, particularly defensively, and you saw how they just strangled the Sixers offense today. You combine that with the fact that Erik Spoelstra is as good as anybody in the NBA is making adjustments, and that Jimmy Butler, I don't know, top 20, 25 player in the regular season, is easily a top 10 player when the postseason rolls around, averages 7 to 8 more points per game in the postseason. Combine all of that, and you've got a Heat team that dominated the Sixers, and I think are a real threat to make it all the way to the NBA Finals.
What has Jimmy Butler meant to this team in Miami? We saw the emotion of him waving goodbye to the fans there in Philly. We know he played there for one season. Just can you speak on what he has meant to Miami?
Yeah, Jimmy Butler's a really interesting personality. I think there's a lot of similarities to Chris Paul. Talented guys, remarkable basketball players, great in the postseason, and unique in how they interact in locker rooms with players that they don't think meet their standards of dedication and excellence. And we've seen this with Butler in Chicago, in Minneapolis, in Philadelphia. It didn't work. And just talking to sources, and this is an open secret, Sherry, around the NBA, he was not always well loved in those places. Miami is the perfect instrument for his opus, basketball-wise. It's the perfect spot for who Jimmy Butler is. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He doesn't take any gruff. He's all about the game. He plays great defense, and he's not always nice, but he's always effective. And so I think for Butler, he's at a place, like Chris Paul in Phoenix, that's the perfect spot for what he's about, how he's about, and his ability to go into that organization and not just offer what they need, a scorer, a leader, a top player in the postseason, but to really fit into a culture that was tailor-made for what he does and how he approaches the game. It's a big part of the reason the Heat are where they are and that Jimmy Butler is so happy in Miami.
No one can question Joel Embiid's dedication, grit, whatever you want to call it, coming back right from that concussion, a fractured eye socket and torn ligament in his thumb. He put up a team-high 20 points, 12 rebounds. Looking back, Embiid plus James Harden, what do you make of what they were able to accomplish and mesh together this season?
Yeah, what I make of it is it's a remarkably disappointing season, and there's a lot of blame that's going to have to go around and some difficult decisions for Daryl Morey. Sherry, you're right. This is not a Joel Embiid problem. He did not play at the level that he wanted to in this postseason because the guy was hurt. He was banged up. The thumb, the concussion, the eye socket. I mean, that's a guy who plays hurt. James Harden took a handful of shots. Again, Tyrese Maxey was the most dynamic, at least courageous player on that team, not named Embiid. That's a young dude. You need your veterans to step up. Guys like Tobias Harris were largely underwhelming. Doc Rivers' game plan didn't seem to be effective throughout this postseason. His adjustments were lackluster, and you've got to figure out, do you give James Harden more money? He's got a player option at $47 million. What do you do about Doc Rivers? It's going to be a really long and difficult offseason for a Sixers organization that is talented, that is a top 3 player in the NBA, that obviously made a bold move in bringing Harden in, and then again finds himself not even able to make it to a conference finals.
I want to get your instant reaction to this, Bill. Can you grade the 76ers season? And you kind of touched on it. Do they bring Doc Rivers back?
I mean, I think the grade for the 76ers is a D+ or a C- if Professor Reiter is in a really generous mood, Sherry, because this is a team that had expectations to make and win an NBA championship, and I think they're realistic. When you've got a guy like Embiid, you've got an opportunity. Now, to be fair to Philadelphia, the Ben Simmons debacle was a debacle. It's their second best player who wouldn't play, but they moved on from him. They brought in Harden. Daryl Morey, who runs operations on the basketball side for Philly, is familiar with Harden when they overlapped in Houston, so that's on him as well. As for Doc Rivers, you probably wouldn't describe me as the leading candidate to run the Doc Rivers fan club, so I may not be the right person to ask. But I will say this, it's always awkward when you have a head coach who does not get along with one of your superstars. And as I understand it, that is the case between Doc Rivers and James Harden. Now, they don't like each other, but it's just not a great relationship. And remember, Daryl Morey was hired to run basketball operations over Elton Brand shortly after Doc Rivers got hired. So Doc's not even Daryl's guy. Doc Rivers' teams historically don't shoot a lot of three-point shots. Daryl Morey run organizations shoot a ton of three-point shots. So there's some philosophical problems. My guess is that it's 50-50. I talked to some sources about this today and yesterday. That's what they passed on to me. Feels like a coin flip that Doc Rivers comes back. It's probably not the right fit. Obviously, they didn't succeed this year, but Doc Rivers is owed a whole bunch of money and is respected by a lot of people in the NBA, so that's one of the really difficult calls Daryl Morey will have to make.
Next up for Miami, the winner of the Bucks-Celtics series. As of Thursday night, Milwaukee leading 3-2. Bill, how do you see Miami stacking up against either of these teams? I guess it's leaning more towards Milwaukee since they lead the series.
Yeah, so I think whoever wins Milwaukee-Boston, right? If the Bucks win one more game or if the Celtics win the next two, whoever wins that series, to me is the large favorite to come out of the Eastern Conference. I think either of those teams will beat the Miami Heat. But, Sherry, I've got a ticket on the Heat to win the whole thing at 14-1 from a few months ago that I still feel pretty good about, not just because they're in the conference finals. I think the question will be, can Miami's defense, and it's been excellent, can it really shut down Giannis Antetokounmpo? Are they able to take advantage of in a way the Celtics haven't? The lack of Chris Middleton. Bobby Portis Jr. has stepped up for the Bucks if it's the Bucks that advance. Guys like Grayson Allen. And can Jimmy Butler continue to impose himself offensively at a different level than he tends to in the regular season? I think the odds are no. I think the Bucks and the Celtics are championship-level teams. But Miami has made a point of proving people wrong and pointing to the doubters, including, I guess, me now, and saying you don't know what you're talking about again and again and again. They feel like they didn't get the respect they deserved a couple years ago in the bubble when they made that run to the NBA Finals. And so they'll be hell-bent, Sherry, certainly on proving people like me wrong.
Well, we know the Bucks and Celtics really beating each other up, so can't wait to see who advances to that series, getting to take on the Miami Heat. But Reiter, we appreciate your insight. Thank you, my friend. Let's take a look at the 76ers playoff results and the postseason woes continuing for Joel Embiid. Look at this. Since he was drafted, 2018, lost in the conference semis, again in 2019, then 2020, losing in the first round. Last two seasons, yet again, losing in the conference semifinals.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.